Hi, everyone. So good to see you guys for a second meeting. How lovely. Like I said, you women look so beautiful in your colors. Can you guys hear me back there? You guys can hear me? Okay. So here we go on the second half of um, our parenting course called Parent Force. Remember, we want to have that force of parenting, not an aggressive force, but a power about us where our kids know that we're in control and we know what we're doing, right? And the capacity to influence our children, because that's really what parenting is, right? The ability to influence our children, okay? So before we start the parenting, though, last time you guys talked about this issue with acculturation, with you guys being from India and your children being raised in the United States. And therein lies a lot of conflict, right? You guys are telling me there's conflict there. There's a push and a pull, right? There's a push and a pull of it. Do you need something? Go ahead. So what I thought I'd do with you guys is what I would do if you were in my practice. If you came to me and said, hey, this is a problem we're having with our kids. Our kids are growing up in a totally different culture. And this is a problem. We're in conflict. You know, my kids aren't being raised with the values I want them to be raised with, right? And so we're in conflict. Is there any way you could shut that back door? Sorry. I'm looking at the house out there for some reason. I don't know why. I'm being distracted. So in my practice, I use what's called, and most therapists now, we've learned that the most successful mode of treatment is using what we call the brain adaptive model, and I talked to you about that last time, where as a therapist, we don't really tell people what to do. We just set up the conditions for change and growth, and set up the conditions for your brain to work for you. And so if you came into my office and said, hey, there's a conflict here, I'm having a cultural conflict, this is what I would say. I would tell you, so we need to think through and hash out what we want, right? What do we want from our children, right? What do we want from the American culture? What do we want from the Indian culture? Because that's what good acculturation is, right? Taking the best of the American culture and taking the best of the Indian culture, okay? So I want you guys to tell me what are the best things. Is Ashley, is there any way you could come right on the board? Could you come right on the board for me, the answers that people give? Okay. So we're gonna set up conditions for your brains and your collective brains, let's say, to solve this problem, okay? So tell me, do you wanna start with American or Indian? Which? American, okay. Let's start off with the American culture. So collectively, what do you guys think are the better things about the American culture? What's the good? I know there's bad. Trust me, I'm a therapist. I know the bad of the American culture. Let's start with the good.
They're very straightforward.
Oh, straightforward. That's a good quality, right? You know what you're dealing with. You don't have to think around. Okay. What else is good about the American? Why are you guys here? Why did you guys come? What was good about the United States?
They appreciate, like, you did good, you are right, that's good. So
people appreciate you. That's a cultural value that's American, that you're more appreciated. Okay. What else?
Oh, respect.
So there's respect. Everybody, there's more respect in the United States. Okay.
they knew how to accommodate others.
Oh, they accommodate others. Oh, these are good things. I've been really negative on the American culture. This is good for me because I only hear the bad. So this is good for me that you guys have this experience. Go ahead.
Americans are less judgmental.
We talked about that last time, so I made an extra slide about that, about what to do about that. Less judgmental, okay? All right, is that it for?
Yeah, in general, Americans are more disciplined, like standing in a line. Yeah, back home. Yeah, more patience. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Oh, that's what I was going to say. Punctuality.
Really? The Indian culture punctuality is not big. Okay. I didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know this. Okay, okay. Yeah, okay. So we'll move on. So what are the bad parts of the American culture? What do you come here and say, no, no, I don't, this isn't working for me?
Yeah. Over the time, the values are going down. The values.
Oh, values.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, right. You mean like Christian values? Yes, agreed. I'm agreed 100% with you on that one. That's a deep sadness I have, actually. Of
Can I say ladies are more freedom?
course you can. Women have, what, is that a good or a bad? Oh, that's a good. I was going to say, this is good. This is good. More freedom for women.
Too much freedom is not good too. So that's kind of good and bad, both sides, the freedom.
For women, you mean?
Not the women, in general. Yes.
Oh, okay. So, like, yes. So, our American culture, maybe there's not a lot of boundaries, right? And then and you're translating this, that's just too much freedom, so you don't have a lot of boundaries. Okay, yeah. What else don't you like about the American culture? I think there's some, yeah, I'm gonna let you guys.
I think almost the same. Too liberal. They are too liberal. Liberal.
Liberal. Sure, I'll agree with that one too. Yeah. Well, yeah. And you could argue about what liberal means, but yeah. Materialistic. Oh, that's a good one. We are devastatingly materialistic, and we're teaching our kids that our value is based on what we have, right? Family values, right, are kind of being torn apart in the American culture, right?
So many broken families.
Broken families, yes. Devastating to children, right?
What? Use and throw attitude. What is
I'm so sorry. Wasteful? Oh, waste.
what is the word we usually think like, how we can make use of something. Here people think, oh, how we can tolerate that and get away.
Oh, yeah, right. No, I agree with that. Yeah. Say it however you want. Anything else that we want to that we just don't want to take with us in the American culture? Any things that your kids are exhibiting from the American culture? They come home from school and you're like, "What is this?"
When we say American, it's not really American. It's what we talk about is Western. Western versus Oriental. It's not Western. It's mostly Western culture.
Yeah.
We are actually more traditional. So the traditional values, if you look in Western world, it's kind of challenging for us to live in such a situation. That involves family, religion, anything that is traditional. So here in US, you can see like we are coming in line with European countries, it is getting more liberal, progressive ideas, which could be challenging for us if we observe like traditional values. So which may be good or bad, it's a point of debate, so that's the
There is really a cultural shift to take down everything traditional. And not only to take down everything traditional, but take it down fast, right? Like people can change slowly over time, but when you change a culture really fast, you make a lot of mistakes, right? Right? Okay, yeah. So I'm gonna have, oh, go ahead. Oh.
I think accommodating others, that is a good thing, but I think we are too much accommodating with all other, all other kind of like LGBTQ, other this thing is getting too much. And the values, the Christian values and the country's tradition and everything get too much waterized. It's the values. It's kind of very diluted. The core values.
Like an increase of sexual openness and a decrease of any kind of Christian boundaries, right? And did somebody else say?
Another thing is children here are more independent. So it is to an extent where we lose control.
Okay, that's a good one. Let me think about that one. Wait a second.
More individualism, they give you more independence, importance to the individualism than social values and moral values.
Yes, and that's good and bad, right? We want our kids to grow up and be independent and self-sufficient and all these things, but then they lose the spirit of the collective, and I'm going to talk about narcissism, because narcissism is on a rise with our children, and it's devastating for our children, right? To think about yourself is very mentally unhealthy, right? To be always self-focused, it causes anxiety, because you're always thinking and worried about yourself. If you're always worried about your parents, about what you're saying, about what you're doing, that's very anxiety provoking. Okay, we have one more.
We have too many opportunities here. It's a good way. We have a lot of opportunities. We can make a lot of good things, but at the same time, too many opportunities gives too much confusion, and nobody, unless you know which one is good or bad, it's give a bad effect. And nobody is teaching which one is good, to choosing for the kids especially. And we are respecting their individual, they're individual and they have their own opinions. For the respect way, mostly I heard that it's up to you. That's the word I'm hearing. So the kids have their own. They don't know which one is right or wrong. So there is chance for choosing wrong things at the same time.
Giving children responsibility before they know enough to make those choices. Is that kind of what you're saying? That we act like they know everything? No, they don't. Not yet. They haven't learned it yet, right?
In US, a lot of gangs. Yeah, that's very bad for me, and less gun control and kind of stuff more than India. As I'm talking about when I am back from India, 17 years back. So that culture is a little bit hard for me. Yeah, so gun control more strict. That's what I am expecting from this country.
Does India have gun control? Are you allowed to have guns in India? Oh, not at all. Oh, they're very strict. Oh, and there's no gangs in India? What, no? It's just a different kind of gang. It looks differently? Oh, okay. Can you explain?
Yeah, there's gangs are there. We called gundas. We is called gundas. Same thing, gangs. But they don't have a gun violations. They're using other kind of saw, something like that, for killing and all things. But I want to say culture about, we are all around worried about our kids' next life, how they will go. We are all about worried about that, because here kids are choosing their husband or wife, husband or wife. So that is we are all worried how they will choose, how will be that. And here most of the people living together, they don't want to marry, they don't want kids. That's normally people are talking about, and that they are hearing from school a lot of. So their mind, marriage is not necessary, no need, living together, no kids. that's the lot of the hearing from the schools and all. So we are all worried about that. Because we have in India, we have a very good, strong family in life. And before there was the less devotions, divorce, that means. But here is a lot. This is a normal, A lot of people are, is living together 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. They're getting divorced and going other husband or wife, That culture we are worried about most of.
I think if I were to take the value that Indians put on family, I would take that over the American value or the Western. It's just because, yes, in the schools they are talking about, well, there's this independence thing, like you don't really need anybody. When the truth is, for mental health, we actually need people, and we need people a lot to be mentally healthy, and we need very strong bonds with our children. And so we're going to talk more about getting a stronger sphere of influence over our children, right? Because that's what we want. That's our goal. We want to influence our children, okay? Okay, so let's do an exercise. So this is what I would do if you were in my office, okay? We won't go through the Indian culture because I think you guys told me what's good about the Indian culture and what's good about the American culture, okay? So, so right now with this issue, you guys are all telling me that when you think about this issue mentally, let's cancel this. When you think about this issue mentally, inside, you go inside, and there's just a lot of confusion. You don't know what to do about this issue. There's just these thoughts coming, wait a minute, you know something's not right, and you're telling me these things that aren't right. But so what we do in therapy is called mentalization. I told you a little bit about this last time. So what we're doing, so this exercise that I'm going to do with you takes this. We go from your brain to this confusion and state of unknowing, and we start to organize the problem inside your brain, right? We're organizing inside your brain, and what happens to your brain when you start to go inside, tell your brain what the problem is in detail, your brain starts to solve the problem. And that's called the brain adaptive model. I only, as a therapist, set up conditions for the brain to work for you, okay? So we're going to do this exercise. I want everybody to close your eyes. I want everybody to go inside. Go into your internal world. I do a whole other exercise, but for this and for time's sake, I just want you to notice your body. I want you to notice your heart beating in your chest. I want you to notice the air going into your lungs. I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to hold that. And I want you to let it out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now I want you to take your mind to this issue, this conflict. And I want you to notice these things that we talked about of the American culture that are so good. The reason you came here, the things you embrace about the American culture. And I want you to bring up a picture in your head. If you could consolidate all of those things about the American culture and bring a picture in your head that represents all of those things. Once you have a picture in your head, I want you to sit back and look at that picture. And now I want you to notice your body when you look at that picture. What do you experience in your body? Is it a warmth? What is it there in your body when you look at this picture of all the goodness of the American culture? And as you experience your body, I want you to notice what the best part of that is. What's the best part, the best feeling that you get when you think about the American culture? And now I'm going to ask you to shift your mind to the beauty of your Indian culture. If you could put all these beautiful things about the Indian culture represented in a picture in your head, what would that look like? Notice the detail. What is the best part of all of it? And if you're sitting back and you're noticing all the good things of the Indian culture, notice your body. Is there a warmth there? Where do you notice all this goodness in your body? And lastly, what I want you to do is I want you to take that image of the American culture along with that feeling in your body, and I want you to pair it with the goodness of the Indian culture. Your heart, soul, mind, I want you to put them together and notice them together. What does that look like when they come together? What do you experience in your body? Is there a lot of conflict still? Or is there more knowing? Now I want you to take a deep breath in, hold out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and open up your eyes. So what we just did is we set a template for your brain to solve this problem. Because I've never been in a different culture, I've only been in one. I'm not in two like you guys are, so I can't tell you. But this week, what's going to happen, if you truly were able to mentalize, what's going to happen is your brain is going to set in motion behaviors to solve this problem and figure out how to translate the best of the American culture, the best of the Indian culture to your children. Okay? Ashley's my point person here, so come to Ashley and tell her. Because your brain is, we set our brain in motion to solve problems for us, and I just did that. I just did an exercise that's going to help you with that. So, okay. So, well, any thoughts, actually? Did you guys experience anything? Was that difficult? If that was difficult for you to do and you were really distracted, then what we do is we work on a lot of brain-body work. We work on a lot of connecting our brain to our body. Yoga is wonderful for that. There's a lot of exercises that you can do, meditation, things like that. Anyways, any thoughts about that exercise? What was it like for you?
Actually, it was a good exercise. I just want to add something. So when we do this meditation, as a Christian and Catholic, we usually, when you said think about a picture, in our culture, usually we ask the children to use like a thinking of Jesus' life, like a thinking of good life, something. So then we compare what we are doing and what Jesus did. So that's kind of spiritual meditation we use. Yeah, we do that.
You guys do the spiritual meditation about Jesus' life and translating it to how you want your children to behave. That's beautiful. Do it more, because if you want something to go into your children, You got to tell your brain they have to close their eyes. They have to really focus on it because, we can't focus in today's day. I mean, I get up at 6:30. I go to go to bed at 11. There's no time really to focus, so we have to stop and intentionally focus. So yes, that's so beautiful. That's how you get it in. That's how you get those beautiful stories in, and actually, a child can internalize it. Jesus's life and his behavior and bring it into their life. That's beautiful, mentalizing, spiritual. Okay. Anybody else have any experience? Was that worthwhile? Okay. Okay. So let me know next time I come. We're going to do a lot about emotional intelligence next time. We're going to talk about how to manage your emotions, and because people who are emotionally intelligent do much better in life, are more successful, have much more success in life. So, but feeling your feelings in your body is part of emotional intelligence. That's why I did that, just so you know. You're probably wondering, what is she doing here? Anyways, that's part of the next exercises. Okay, so now we are going to finish our parenting series. Ashley, how much time do we have? It's 11:50. 11:50. Oh, do we have till 12:30? Okay. I just want to moderate on time. Okay, so now we're back to the parenting series. We're finishing the second half of what we did last time. So I really want to start with this, and this is the reason I gave you a piece of paper. Okay, so I want everybody to draw a big circle on their piece of paper. I think we might have done this last time, but I really want to bring this home. I don't know that we brought this home. So draw a graph of your child's sphere of attention. Where in one day, where does your child's attention go? Is it video games? Is it studying? Is it exercising? What are the things that are capturing your child's attention? So your child only has a certain amount of time in a day, and so draw a circle and put in and graph it out just like this. Graph it out of where your child's attention is going. I don't mean time where their attention is going. It's a little bit different. Because as you're drawing this, I want you to know that where your child's attention goes, their brain is wiring. So I have some friends that allow their kids, my kid would come home and say, oh, hey, Jonathan hit a target of being 40 hours on his video game. And then I know how much kids spend on their phone. So be honest about this sphere of attention, okay? Be honest about it, as honest as you can. My point in having you do this is that I want you to look on the paper and see the reality of how your child's brain is being wired. Okay, where your attention goes, your brain wires. Okay? Where your attention goes, your brain fires. Your neurons are firing. So there's a part of your brain for video games, let's say. So every time your child plays a video game, that set of neurons lights up a part of your child's brain, okay? So where neurons fire together, they wire. And if your neurons are firing repeatedly in one direction, they're going to hardwire, okay? So where your kid's attention goes hardwires them for adulthood. So if your child's on their phone a lot, they're being hardwired to be on their phone for adulthood. Okay. So there are two times where in our development when we have what's called neural explosions. When we're about 3 years old. I think we might even have a 3-year-old in the white dress back there. How old is she? Oh, she's one. She looks so tall. About age 3, you have a neural explosion. You have billions and billions of neurons firing. The second time in your development that you have exponential neurons firing is in teenagerhood. Okay? So teenagerhood is a crucial time where our kids' brains are wiring. There's neural explosions. There's so many neurons right here during this time. And, and I'm going to tell you guys what the scary part is. When I learned this, I said, no, this couldn't be possible. It's so scary to me. You guys might not be scared, but I was. So as these neurons are firing and directing and going into lighting up certain parts of their brain, right? As they're firing and lighting up their brain, something else is happening in teenagerhood, which was not happening when they were 3. There's a process called pruning. Does anybody know about pruning here? Okay. What? Yeah, right. It's like a plant. That's why it's called pruning. Okay? Because where your kids attention is going to is wiring their brain. But guess what? Anything they're not using is getting pruned out. So these behaviors that you want to see in your kids, if you aren't trying to promote them during teenagerhood, they're going to get pruned out. Like, I'm a little sad for my kids because I never really got my kids into music. I just think music is so important. My kids are sports kids. And I think, oh gosh, yeah, you know, that hard wiring for music is probably getting pruned out of my kids, right? It worries me. It makes me a little sad because there's so many things we want our kids to do. So do you guys understand this concept and how it relates to your kids? And why it's so vital that you know where your kids' attention is going to, right? You know, we were talking about porn before, right? And so say a kid's watching 2 hours a week of porn, right? I'm trying to think of the consequences of hardwiring your brain to porn, right? That's a little scary, right? And really to addiction, that's really hardwiring your brain to meet a need through porn, right? Hardwiring your brain. So be so careful about where your kids' attention is going. Okay. This is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think the importance of holding your children's emotions is so important. And, oh, hold on, I didn't put this in slideshow. Here we go. So your emotions, and this is all in what I think I will be teaching your kids when we talk about emotional intelligence. But every emotion you have has a beginning, middle, and end. Okay? So every emotion has a beginning, middle, and end. I'm sure you guys who are in science, you guys all know about the normal curve, right? Beginning, middle, and end. And usually an emotion peaks. There's a peak point of an emotion. Okay. So one of my biggest surprises, because I mean, I grew up with a mom who knew how to hold my emotions, so I kind of knew how to do this, and I assumed that other people did know how to hold their emotions. Well, first of all, can you tell me in the Indian culture, what are emotions, how are emotions dealt with in the Indian culture? It's what? Oh, you guys are holder-inners? You guys are holder-inners? Okay. Oh, crying? Okay. Well, Okay. Because the suppression of when you suppress an emotion, this is for the emotional intelligence, so I'll just say a little bit of it. But since you're saying this is characteristic of the Indian culture, when you suppress an emotion has to go somewhere. Emotion has energy. It has to go somewhere. So if you're suppressing an emotion, it has to come out at some point. So a lot of people who suppress get, a lot of my clients who suppress get physical problems. Is there more physical problems? Okay, yeah. When you suppress, you're going to get more anxiety. You're going to get more depression. You know, so so that's something to keep in mind. But so what say?
Psychosomatic.
I don't even know if it's psychosomatic. It's kind of real. But yes, I understand. Yes, it's you develop real medical problems. I mean, there's evidence to support this when you suppress your emotions, right? So, so your children have a beginning, a middle, an end to their emotions. Okay? So, and I think men, don't hate me for saying this, but I think I think we've socialized men to not experience their emotions. Okay, would you men say that's true or not true? Yeah, men are taught not to cry, and there's actually courage in expressing feelings. It's actually a strong thing to do. So we have to reshape. It's actually people who allow their emotions to go through the beginning, middle, and end are gonna be much more mentally healthy than people who don't. Okay, so your children have a beginning, middle, and end to their emotions, and it's your job to be with them and hold their emotions from the beginning, middle, and end. What do you guys think about this? Do you guys have any thoughts about this?
We need a lot of patience, because each child is different, so we just have to understand, be open to them, open communication that will help them also.
We have mirroring neurons in our brain. And that mirror neurons are what helps us when we're with somebody. We actually experience the emotions they're experiencing. And those are for bonding. That's how we bond to one another. Our emotions are mirrored, okay? So so what I need you to do with your children, yeah?
I think realizing the starting is an important thing. Like when your child is going to get anxious or angry, we know before, like this going to trigger them. So it's better the mom should know, like, okay, I'm not, especially I'm giving an example. When I say to my daughter, like something she doesn't like, I know that this she is not going to like, but I had to say no, then she's going to be double of that. So to prevent, understand before starting that point, we recognizing is better than going to the middle or to the highest.
Oh, identifying the trigger of the emotion and catching it early. That's good. That's actually what I'm going to talk about later. Yeah.
I prefer let them burst out what they have to say. And at the end, they will feel better. They will say, oh, sorry, Mom. Yeah, I understood now. So I prefer them to burst before then let them go. I will let them go. So I will talk loudly too. And at the end, it will be a good end. So,
it's important to determine. Some kids use emotions for manipulation, let's be honest, right? So I'm not talking about, I want to go to the movies and I have homework. No, you can't go to the movies. Oh, I'm sad. Oh, I'm going to be with you in your... No, that's not what I'm talking about. So there's a word that I love. It's called discernment. We have to discern as parents. We have to use discernment to be so deeply connected to our kids that we kind of know. Like I know when my kids are telling a whopper, So we have to use this discernment as parents. So yes, you don't want to be in an emotion that's superficial, right? I'm talking about emotions that are very real, that if aren't addressed, will lead to a depression and anxiety, right? That's what I'm talking about, okay? So let me ask you guys a question. What is your capacity to experience emotion from beginning, middle, and end? Because your capacity to experience your emotion will reflect your child's capacity to experience their emotion. So I want everybody to ask themselves, what is your capacity to experience your own emotion? So what happens is we start to experience an emotion. Most of the time, when we're experiencing it, we don't even know we're having it, right? And then by the time we really feel it, we're at a peak here. And so what a lot of people do right here, they say, oh, this is intolerable. I have to do something to get out of this emotion, right? I like chocolate. What do you do when the adversity, the pain, the suffering of the emotion is here? Do you, if your child comes to you and says, "Oh, can you give me a problem? What's going on right now? What problems are your kids having?" Bad grades. Okay. So, and are kids sincerely sad about this? They're having real emotions about bad grades. Is that right? Okay. So, they're right here. They're having they feel terrible because they got a bad grade. The emotion comes up here. Let's call it sadness, disappointment, shame, maybe. Maybe those are the emotions. You guys might have to tell me. So we're at the top of it. Do you say to your child, oh, let's go get an ice cream. You'll feel better. Your job is not to stop the flow of your child's emotion. Your job is to sit with your child in their emotion, mirror it, experience it with them, okay? Beginning, middle, and end. Because if your child gets to here, so if you never let your child get to here, this emotion is going to stay with them. And what happens to emotion, it builds in layers, right? And if you don't deal with it, it gets stored in your emotional brain. And it really kind of handicaps you in so many ways. It kind of gets in the way of you living your life or having good relationships, right? So allow your children to suffer. Allow them this suffering. We grow through our own suffering, so allow them to do that. Don't take it away from them. Don't take their growth away from them. I think I covered all this. I have other stuff about this, but we'll talk about that when we do emotional intelligence. This is one I just recently added because I thought, oh my gosh, I just noticed some things with my kids. So I have a kid who is an insane athlete. He's playing football. He catches every ball. And everybody's looking at me like, he's a miracle. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's crazy. He's a miracle. And he gets up early in the morning and he gets really good grades. What's so interesting about him, his mouth won't stop going. He has an energy about him that is constant. And it makes him a really good athlete, but it makes his personality very difficult to be around, right? So what I want you to do is start to notice the personality traits of your children. This is very important. We want our children to gain self-awareness, right? For example, me, I didn't have the words to know that I didn't have a lot of mental structure when I was younger. And so I would just go here and go there and, I never really had a plan, right? I didn't have a lot of mental structure. It wasn't until I noticed, oh, somebody, I might have been in a psychology class, oh yeah, that's what I don't have. You can't fix what you don't have unless you know you don't have it. Okay? So lately I've been talking to my son. I have another son, and they're close to the same age, and it's so odd. So he has this warm personality and a glowing smile. And he's so soft and just laid back and cool. But on the other side of that, he, right now, as we speak, he is probably sitting on the couch, being lazy. I have to hide the remote controls from him, let's just say. Okay? And he loves carbohydrates, and he will just inhale and not stop. He's just, this is his personality. So our job as parents is to help our kids identify our vulnerabilities. We all have them. I tell my kids, this is what's going on with mom. I have a weakness here, and here's how I'm compensating. So you can't compensate for your weakness unless you know what it is. And so take a realistic look at your children. What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? I really like to focus on the strengths. But for your kids to know, so I sat my son Danny down. Danny, the same energy that makes you a miracle maker on the football field is the same energy that you need to control in this other part of your life. Sometimes it appears that he has Tourette's. Do you guys know what Tourette's is like? He just will spontaneously put out sounds. And he's too old to do that, right? So help your children in a very loving way, of course, to notice what their vulnerabilities are. This is a gift you will give to your children. It's a gift that I didn't get that I wished that somebody had told me so I could have figured things out earlier. And God, my life would have been so much easier, right? When you know your vulnerabilities. Okay. Did I talk about this last time? Well, okay, so we're in a time now where that's unprecedented for our children. They have more information coming into them than any child at any other time in history. The information is infinite, it's constant. You can look up anything about anything, any time of the day or night. So they are bombarded with information, okay? We have more of a responsibility than ever to make our kids strong. I mean, of all the things we're going to talk about today, we got to make our kids strong. If your kids aren't strong through these times, if you don't build your kids' strength through these times, your kids are going to have a lot of problems. We have a mental health epidemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it. We have one. Before, it used to be more kids, there would be a few kids with mental health problems. Now I'm going to tell you that more kids than not have mental health problems, right? So when you see strength in your child, you're going to catch that. That is gold to a parent. So if your kid does something, oh, wait a minute, you really, like my daughter, she's working at a food bank today. She's doing something she really doesn't want to do. And so she had to go against her natural instincts to say, she could have said, oh, I'm sick. Oh, Mom, I have homework. But go against your natural instincts to get out of it and say, and she said, okay, I'm going to do this, Mom. I know that's little. I know it's little. But strength is a bunch of little things anyways, right? Strength builds from small to big. So when your kid spends the extra hours to study and does well on a test, that's gold. You need to grab it. You need to say, wow, in detail. The brain loves detail. Wow, I saw you sitting there totally focused. I saw you learning this math that might have been well beyond your knowing or your intelligence, but you sat there and you focused on it. You go into detail, you tell the story. You worked so hard. And look what you got. Your courage paid off. And identify it. That's courage right there. That's what kids, that's what courage looks like. When your husband or wife does something showing courage, whoa. My husband, I can't even believe it because I could never do this. My husband took a paddleboard from Newport Beach to Catalina. Whoa. A paddleboard with his arms. Wow. You know, my husband isn't courageous in a lot of ways, but wow, that's courage, isn't it? To take that leap, right? So notice it in your spouse and be sure to tell that story to your children. I'm guessing sitting here that you guys have earned a lot of courage points when you lived in India, because my guess is that there's a little bit more hardship there. I know life is easier here. Do your children know those stories? Oh, we have to make them understand. What don't
It's like they have not seen it. So what is not seen is not real.
We'll tell this story with detail, like a movie. They don't have to see it. I don't have to know the pain of my clients to know that it's really painful. But people tell me their stories, and they tell it in a really personal way, and I really know what that suffering is. I haven't suffered like that. No, I haven't. But I kind of know what that suffering's like because they describe in detail. Well, I force them to describe in detail. They say, oh, everything was fine. I said, no, let's describe this in detail. But when they do and they give me details, I'm with them, and I really try to experience that suffering. Okay? Make your children strong. I won't talk about that one. Oh. Who has children who lie? Every parent should be raising their hand right now. Your children will... You tell more lies than your children. I love that. Oh, I'm sure they're little white, good lies. Raise your hand if you lied to your parents as a child. This is how we know that children lie. Right? Every once in a while, I'll meet a parent, and she will, or he, but mostly she, will say, my child tells me everything, and I know everything, and my child wouldn't do that because she said she didn't do that. And I think to myself, so I have 4 children now. So I used to give this speech before I had children, but now I have children, and it's verified. Okay. Children will lie. It's part of their development. There's a process called separation and individuation that we all go through, where we separate and become individuals as separate from our parents. This is a very good process. This is a process that helps your children grow. Separation and individuation. You want them to do this. If your children are, you remember when your kids were little and they're always at your feet, you know, and they're always right there, and then you're talking to somebody and you're like, oh, I really want to talk to this person. I can't even make any friends because my kids. So they shouldn't be like that in teenagerhood. There's this, we're going to talk about bonding, and bonding becomes different and grows because your bond with your children is enormously, immensely important. But we want our children to separate and individuate. And lying is part of the process because they're becoming different than you. And so if they're going to be different than you, then they kind of have to lie about it, right? And I don't mean your kids going out and doing these really, you want your kids to tell you the truth. But children are going to lie to you. And I'd make a commitment here and now to accept that they're going to lie to you and that it's part of their development. A lot of parents come to me and said, no, I don't even care about what he did. But the biggest betrayal was that he lied to me. And I think to myself, well, it should be more what he did, not that he lied to you about it. But so lying is acceptable in parenting. I think it's good to encourage the truth. Now, if there's a pattern of lying and then we get into a mental health disorder, right? If there's a pattern of chronic lying for no reason. But children usually lie for a reason, right? So accept that your children are going to lie. But so when you start to accept that your children are going to lie, then you come from a different perspective. So my kid comes up to me and says, oh, such and such happened. I think to myself, okay, that might be 50% true. All right. So when you're working from 50% true, you're going to be a better parent, right? Okay, that might be true, but no, that might not be true. I think when your children aren't lying to you at a different time, and we'll talk about debriefing later, but when your children aren't lying to you, then you talk to them about the value of lying and why not to lie. Not when they're in the lying, when they're out of the lying and you guys are snuggling in bed and you say, hey, you know what? If you lie a lot, people might not be able to trust you. And you might not have very good relationships if you're lying a lot. And, or they might tell you about a fib they told one of their friends and you might say, yeah, that didn't work out well for you, did it? So you told this lie, remember, descriptive, detail. You give them back their story in detail. And, hey, this was the consequence, and that didn't work out for you. You might not have a lot of friends if you lie. Or if you lie to me a lot, because I know kids lie. If you lie to me a lot, then I might not trust you either. So I tell my kids, the more I know about your life, the more freedom you're going to have. If you give it to me straight, then you can have more freedom because I understand. I can kind of tell now if they're giving it to me straight. So that's what I tell my kids. So they have there's a motive. There's a payback for them being honest. The more I know, because let me tell you, what your kids are going out what your kids are experiencing out in the world is nothing like you even know. I know because they tell me. But it's nothing like you even know. So you want them to tell you those stories, right? You want them to open up and tell you those stories. The more I know about all this stuff, and then when they do tell you the stories, that's probably not a good reaction, right? Like my eyes used to be wide open. My eyes aren't wide open anymore. I'm like, okay, but allow them to tell you those stories. Because somebody said over there, which I forgot who said it, but confusion is really anxiety provoking. So they're out there trying to figure out their world. If they can't come home to you and tell you about it, and so for you to explain this to them, that confusion really stays with them and causes anxiety. And a lot of people send them to therapists, and I'm not going to say that that's the best thing to do. They need your feedback. And you guys have experienced some life. You guys have this adversity already. You know what to do, right? Okay. We've already talked about creating a conflict. I think you got to there. We already talked about that. Okay, I just want to say a couple things about being non-judgmental, because this is the second time you've told me that just in your culture it tends to be a little bit judgmental. So I think what I'm going to give you, I think last time I said being judgmental is not really good, but I didn't really tell you what to do about it, right? So can you tell me something that you guys might be judgmental about with your kids? Can anybody give me what might you be judgmental about with your kids? What's a judgment you might have? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, my daughter wants to wear things that are so inappropriate. Oh my God. So what might you say? What might a comment be about your children's dress? What might you say that's judgmental? Yeah, well, let's not be politically correct, because sometimes I look at my daughter, oh God, that you made that choice is so ridiculous. I can't believe you did that. You know, that's kind of how we talk, isn't it? That's a little bit when we talk, right? Instead, all you need to do is ask your kid what he or she wants. What do you want? What's your goal? Right? So you don't really need to judge. You can make a statement. Oh, hey, and you be descriptive. There's a way to be descriptive without judgmental. Hey, that shirt looks like half a shirt. It's supposed to come to here, but it comes to here. That's a half a shirt. Okay. So you can say things that are true, but to say that's a god awful, I can't believe that you chose that. Are you, do you, what do we say? Do you want to go on the street corner? What, we say all that stuff. So you can make descriptive words about, oh, hey, that shirt is very short and it shows your stomach. And so what are you looking for? So what do you want? What's the goal of that? Okay, well, how do you want, I guess the real question is, why is she going out like that? How do you want people to see you? Because it seems like if you're wearing half a shirt and your stomach is showing that you want people's attention. You need attention, okay. Well, what do you want? Okay. And then you tell your kid, let's make a goal how you can get there, right? So all you do is you make a goal and you set a goal, like the same thing that we were talking about before. You set the brain in motion to solve a problem. You set a goal, and if they don't reach that goal, I'm not saying don't give consequences to your kids. You can still give them a consequence. It's just the judgmental piece that really leads to shame, which goes to their core beliefs about themselves, which causes a lot of mental health problems. Most mental health problems are caused by core beliefs such as shame, right? So we don't want to go there, right? We want a parent without a lot of judgment, okay? What do you want? So she wants people to look at her, oh, let's go find clothes that where you're catching attention, but in the attention you actually really want. You want a guy to really, really value who you are as a person, right? That's what they really want, right? So you want a guy to really value who you are. So let's find an outfit that will help you with that. And if they come out again with the shirt, you don't need to judge. You just need to say, what's your goal? You just need to start over again. Repetition is key in parenting. The things you say over and over again, your children will remember, okay? I got that. Oh, here is one of the biggest ways to gain influence over your children, because remember, that's our goal. We want to gain influence over our children, right? We want them to live good, healthy lives. We want them to take from us all those good things, right? All that good advice, right? How many of you can say that you have a house full of joy? Is there singing and dancing in your home? How do Indians celebrate? What is joy to an Indian? I don't know. You guys are all laughing. Food. Oh, that is joy. Indian food is joy. Yes. Yes, curry is joy. What else is joy? Is there Indian music?
Family get-togethers or friends gathering. Yeah. Then, of course, a lot of food.
At these family gatherings, is there music? Is there music? This is a requirement that I am giving you from now on. Oh, okay, okay. Well, if it's a somber gathering, I'm not going to force you. So, you want your kids to live in a joyful home. I have do you guys have Alexa? I don't know if you guys have Alexa, but I have Alexa, and I know they're listening to everything I'm saying, but I just have found songs for every occasion. Every morning I have, does everybody know the song How Great Thou Art? Carrie Underwood, Alexa it, everybody, sings the best version of How Great Thou Art. And every morning while I'm getting the kids ready, and it used to stress me out because I would have 10 children if I didn't have to make lunches, but I have to make lunches for my kids, but I hate making lunches. And I do it every morning. I don't really like making dinner either. See, I just want to eat your food. I don't want to make it. So, but there's this music that I want my children to understand and know. Because when you listen to How Great Thou Art, you feel the joy of Christ in your heart. It's inevitable. You just do, right? Amazing Grace. And then, because that's my morning. But in the afternoons, so I grew up American, so a lot of the songs that I like are, aren't really Christ-like, let's say, just because I grew up that way. But there's always music in our home, and I want there to be music in your home. Music brings joy. Music is a felt experience. So when your children walk into your home, I want there to be joy and music. And now for the next question. When was the last time you belly laughed with your children? I mean belly laughed. Yesterday? You know how to bring joy into your home. Do you guys belly laugh with your children? Oh, you do? Oh, good. Oh, good. Oh, good. Okay. So this isn't a problem. But you men there, too, I want you belly laughing with your children. I want you to find things funny about the world because it is very funny, right? Your children will enjoy being around you when there's joy in your home and laughter in your home. And you want that influence, right? We're strategic as parents. We got to be strategic. We're not just going to let life happen. We know what to do to bring our children closer to us and bring them under our influence. So you're going to get a lot more influence by having joy in your home than this. You didn't do that? Are you kidding me right now? Right? And not that there can't be that, but there has to be a balance of joy and laughter in your home and music and dancing. Okay? Yeah, and I didn't say this, but joy releases chemicals. There's physical chemicals that are released in your body when you laugh. You want, with all the crap that's going on in our world, you want your children to have the capacity to bring up those good hormones, right? You want them to be hardwired to say, when I feel bad, I can talk to my mom and we can laugh and I feel better, because physiologically, biologically, their bodies will feel better when they experience joy. Okay? Relationship. Oh, somebody, I don't know where we are in time, but we're almost done. I can go through the other stuff quicker, but can I have a helper? Can I have a helper? What is your name? I'm going to get it wrong. Is it Sherry? Oh, Sherry. Okay. I thought you were going to say a name I couldn't pronounce. Okay. Okay. So I need you to take these, and I want you to give one string to, how many are here? 4 people. 4 people. Oh, no. You have to continue holding it. You have to hold it. Your emotional bond, you guys can stand up. We might need people to stand up. Your emotional bond with your children, you could do 3, that's fine, you have to do 4. There you go. Your emotional bond with your children is the most important way you can get influence over your children. Your children, bonding creates safety. Your children can't go into the world unless they feel safe. Okay? And I want you to envision an invisible line between you and each of your children. Because there actually is an invisible line that connects you to your children. And not everybody. Because some people don't know how to create a strong line from themselves to their children. It's not very easy. But this line starts at birth and hopefully grows over time. So when we want our children to go out into the world, and for them to be successful, they have to risk. They have to do something new. They have to go out. They have to risk. And we want our kids to risk, right? We want them to risk to become successful and the people they were meant to be. We want them to risk in finding their love partner for the rest of their lives and getting the best one, of course, right? They can't do that. They're not going to risk and go and fulfill their destiny as people or fulfill God's plan for them if they don't have bonds, strong, secure bonds. So I worked at Orangewood with kids who don't have parents for 20 years. They don't have any strings, okay? They're empty shells. When somebody talked about materialism, they try to fill themselves because they don't have any strings. They try to fill themselves with lots of other things, right? So what you want to do is here. Can I take these strings? Keep on holding on. You want your child to go out into the world. So when your children are young, they're looking this way towards you. When they become teenagers, peers are their main influence, right? Okay? But if they don't have this, the peers are going to overtake you, right? So what we want our kids to do is we want our kids to look into the future, and we want our kids to see the future. They cannot see the future unless they have these bonds, right? They cannot do it. Or they might be able to, but they're going to need a lot of therapy, and it's very expensive, okay? So I want you guys to think about the bonds that you have with your children now and do things, active things, to strengthen them. Not just, how was your day? Doing something with your kids where you have a common goal, where you're playing catch, I don't know, whatever it is, but an activity, an action. This has to be an action. Bonding is multiple sets of actions repeated over and over. It's action, okay? So I want to tell you guys something about these bonds, because women have very strong bonds to their children, and this is biology, and there's hormones that are released. Sometimes, if I, the parent, am really anxious, sometimes through this line of this bond, you can send, when you're really close and bonded with your kids, you can also send things backwards in the bond. So if you're really anxious, you could transfer that anxiety back to your children, okay? So I want you guys to all recognize, hey, I have a little problem where I have a little anxiety. And just know that when you're bonded to somebody, that goes backwards too. Okay, so be really careful about that. So I would do a mentalization, but I don't know if we have enough time. But when you're at home, I want you to close your eyes and I want you just to notice this string, this invisible string, and ask yourself, has my child internalized me as a parent? Meaning, if my kid goes off to college, am I still within in them and their heart, soul? Just like you could do a metaphor of Jesus, right? That no matter where you go, Jesus is with you. The same with your children. We internalize people. So when they're in college or they're starting their first job, you don't have to be with them. You are with them. We internalize people. We bring them in as a part of ourselves. Can anybody tell me who they've internalized? Do you guys understand this dynamic? Have you internalized both of your parents, or did you not have that ability to, or your parents didn't have that ability to connect with you? Is there anybody who can talk about that? No? Well, is there anything that relating to the Indian culture about what I'm saying about bonding? Because I'm talking from an American perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, bonding, that's a human thing, whether it's in America or in India. But I think in my view, okay, I'll share from my heart, the way I bond with our kids. We have 4 children. 3 are about 20, 23, and 25, and one young guy, he's about 15. So what I experienced so far, from about age 12 to about 20, there is a disconnect because they get too caught up with their friends and everybody else outside. Then once they go past that 20, then it's much easier. So that's one thing. Then bonding, I had to put a lot of effort from my side to bond, with the kids or with my wife or whatever it is. So that's an effort had to come from my part, and I had to take the sole responsibility. And I want to just share one more thing. I am the youngest of 6 siblings. So every week I call them. I don't know why. Nobody calls me, but it's okay with me. I take the responsibility even though I am the youngest of the 6. So basically what I'm trying to explain is I had to take the ownership. I had to take the responsibility with my kids or with my wife or with my siblings. I don't know why, but that's the way it is for me.
Yes, I think that was my point, is that you do have to take ownership. Your kids are little, you're the adults, right? You have to take charge and responsibility of the bonding, and you have to figure out a way, sometimes very creatively, because some kids might have harder time bonding than others. So sometimes you have to be really creative. Is what I'm saying resonate with you? Do you feel like there's anybody in your lives that you've internalized that just kind of are with you? Do you guys experience this or no? Is this resonating with you? You experience this? Okay. I just want to make sure.
When I had a lot of experience, if my daughter smelled going to have some trouble, then at night or sometime I will get some bad feeling. Yeah. So last week I went to meet my daughter, and the day before I felt that I had a bad dream. She's going to have some car accident or something. Anyway, I didn't talk or anything. When I went over to talk to her, she was about to crash. Yeah. Car accident. Yeah.
So that invisible string is there, and as evidenced by, right? Uh-huh. Oh, lovely. Uh-huh. And to add to that, I'm now looking at what I wrote. Kids know that they're valued. So a kid can come into my office, and the first hour, I know if another person is invested in this child. I can tell. I know. Oh, somebody invested in this child. It may not even be a parent, because I've had a lot of kids who don't have parents. But I can tell. You can tell. Your children become more, they value themselves. They become more, they become more quality people. They care about what happens to their life. You can tell there's an emotional investment put into these kids, okay? Oh, and I use this in marriage therapy, right? But the one thing each spouse wants, I'm just adding this because the bond between husband and wife is so important. So the one question each person asks in marriage therapy is, when I'm moving forward, and this is the same with kids, that's why I'm saying it, when I'm moving forward in my life, when I look back, can anybody guess what the question is? Are you there for me? When I look back, are you there for me? That's what your kids need to know. That's the question. That's the big question in therapy. When you want somebody to move forward in their lives, I need to know that you're right behind there. Are you there for me? It's the critical question we talk about in marriage therapy. I'm just going to go through this quick because I don't know if we have much time left. Natural consequences. We want to allow our kids to receive their natural consequences. Does this make sense to everybody? If the milk is spilled, who should pick it up? Who should pick up the milk? Sure. Do I have moms here who run and pick up the milk? You do it? No? Oh, yes. Okay. What message are you sending to your child if you pick up the milk? What? You're spoiling them, but what's the message? What are they receiving? Okay. All of that is true. That's true. But the real message, when you do things for your children that they can do for themselves, the messages that you're sending is that you don't have the capacity to do it yourself. You want to send the message that you can do that. If you do it for them, they get the message, oh, maybe I can't do that. Oh, I have a lot of insecure kids. There's a lot of kids who are very insecure because they haven't done a lot of stuff themselves. So they pick up the milk, okay?
What we have, the way of thinking, the perception, they are totally different. Like example, yesterday we had a prayer gathering. 8-year-old boy, it's just a small example. I was telling to my, one of my mom. We had a drink water in a container for the prayer meeting. Everybody to drink the water. There was a glass with the water, the big mug. So for some reason, I picked up the cup from the behind table because I saw the cup sitting placed there. I took one from there. So when I came to take the water to drink, the 8-year-old boy thought this cup sitting with the water should be at the back table. So what he did, he took the whole bunch of cups and then he put it back on the table. So me and one of my mom, it was Soumya, we were talking, oh, what he probably thought, He probably thought, since I brought the cup from the back table, the cup should be there. So it's a totally different way of thinking. It's like an example. Right. That's what our kids are doing sometimes, They're like they're not thinking like how we think. Yeah. We grew up in a different culture. Yeah. They grew up here. So there is a kind of communication, kind of way of understanding is totally different, the perception. Sure. Yeah.
And so in the Indian culture, do parents do a lot for their children that they can do? Oh, you do? Okay, I'm reprimanding you guys right now. Well, I don't do things really. I'm going to be honest here. I don't do things for my kids because I want to or because it's a cultural thing. I do things because it's just faster. And to have them do it, I'm like, oh, it's going to take so much longer. And so I have to really tell myself, Megan, Do not handicap your child from the benefit of picking up their messes and making their own mistakes. Allow them to receive the full natural consequences. See, parents you don't need to consequence that much because the world will do it for you, right? The world will definitely do it for you. Okay. Oh, that's a big difference. I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah.
I have 3 children, 2 sons and 1 daughter. Daughter is born here, and the children were more in Indian culture before. So when after dining, mostly they wash their plate. Sometimes they leave the plate in the wash basin. So when I say my daughter, hey, can you wash that plate for her brother too? Then she says, no, that's not mine. He has to do it. My son may do it because he thinks helping the other person is okay. But my daughter thinks that, no, that's his responsibility. Then I tell her, you can help your brother, okay. So that's the way, like, here more, they take more individually. They do their own thing than helping the other person. That's like not a good culture, but we think like Indian culture too.
Happened to me this morning, I'm going to be honest. So we want to be allowing our children to make their own mistakes and pick up their own mistakes, okay? How are they going to learn how to solve problems if somebody else, what are they going to do when they get into college? You guys probably don't know this, but this is an American story where American mothers would be super protective and do everything for the kids. And then they go off to college, and what happens to their kids? They go crazy. And I'm not kidding. I have 3 nieces and nephews that came back from college in the first 6 months because my sisters-in-laws are overwhelmingly do for their kids. You know, they couldn't take it, right? This is kind of what happened. If they don't know, if they've never solved problems before, how are they going to do it, right? We already talked about courage. Okay, we're almost done here. What in the Indian culture? What do you guys? Do you guys exercise? Do you guys have routine exercise? Is this okay? Okay. Well, exercise is very important to mental health. Very important. So they've done some double-blind clinical studies, or a lot of them actually, and an hour of exercise is comparative to taking an antidepressant. That's how powerful our hormones are in regenerating. You need that blood flow to your brain, right? So add exercise to your routine. If your kids, so let me just tell you about it. Remember when I was telling you about my son who is a really good athlete? I thought when he was like 3 or 4, I was like, and I'm a therapist too, so I can identify this stuff. You know, I was like, I think my kid might have ADHD. Like I thought I might be in for it. I might be one of those therapists who has, the crazy kid, right? And I'm like, oh, I was just seeing it in the front page newspaper, therapist with ADHD kid. I mean, I was like, so I really made it, kind of going back to knowing your kids' vulnerabilities. I really took charge of that. And I knew my son has extra energy, right? And so I just knew he needed an outlet. And it's funny, when I gave him that outlet of all that energy, he became a star football player, right? Whereas that energy when he was younger, it could have gone in a different direction, let's just say. If I wasn't aware and didn't find that out early and know that about my son, it could have really gone in a different direction because it was going towards where I was just like, every time he would do something, I'd be like, ugh. And we have these negative feedback cycles where you start to see your kid in a different light. Oh, here we go again, But instead I said, no, Megan, embrace it and provide an outlet for that, right? So, and he needed that exercise. So I know my son needs, so he plays soccer, he plays a lot of stuff. He needs 2 hours worth a day of exercise to calm his body. He just does, right? So, hour a day, get your kids out there. It doesn't have to be like running. It can be, when kids are playing, they're active, right? But just make sure your kids have active energy. You're going to solve, if you have an active kid, you're going to solve a lot of problems just by doing that. And if you have a teenager who's not working out and is depressed or anxious, have them, and a teenager has to be sweating. So to get the benefit, you have to be sweating. You really need that blood flow to the brain, okay? Oh, so if you guys are thinking about sending your kids to therapy, I'm going to save you $200 an hour, okay? Your children, it's a terrible place to be for any person, but especially a teenager. Remember in teenagerhood, you have all these neurons firing like by the billions, right? There's a lot of energy, okay? If that energy is going towards what happened with John at school, it's going to start looping. And it's going to start any problem is going to start causing anxiety, right? Your brain energy needs a place to go. And if you are stuck inside of yourself, that energy is going to cause anxiety if you're just thinking about yourself. It's going to cause anxiety to the point where you're going to need a therapist. You're going to need somebody like me, right? Save yourself the money. Have your kids doing service to other people. Have your kids giving back. Most kids stuck in their own head it'll turn to some level of narcissism. And maybe not noticeable, but that's why people when they get married, they get better. Like, I'm such a better person now than before I was married, right? Because I have to give to somebody else. It's not just me. And I became an even better person when I had children because it's not me anymore. I have to think about other people. And to tell you the truth, I like my life a lot better when I'm not thinking about myself. I like myself a lot better when I'm doing things for other people. So get your kids out there, especially your teenagers. Have them, and not only that, have them see the suffering of others with their own eyes. Have them see it. Have them look at it in the face. Do you know what a drug addict looks like? I'll tell real quick, my son called me because I had him drop, because I'm here today. So I had him drop my daughter off at this food bank. And he called me, he said, Mom, I can't drop off Lily. I said, yes, you can. He said, no, Mom, these people look like they're going to hurt Lily, my daughter. I said, nope, you're dropping her off. Okay? She needs to see what a person 2 years into meth looks like, right? It's not okay to look away from the suffering of our world. It's not okay for our kids to look away. We have to look it straight in the eye, because if we don't understand it, then we might walk directly towards it, straight in the eye. So and of course, we're going to talk about the next slide, but, I told my daughter, you have to be careful and everything like that. But anyways, broaden their perspective of life. You don't want your kids to see, if the world is this big, you don't want them just to have a piece of pie of perspective. You want them to see the whole perspective, okay? They'll come to appreciate you. real quick, the brain seeks, the teenage brain, if we're talking about teenagers, the main thing to know about the teenage brain is the teenage brain wants to look at new things. Novelty is the key to understanding a teenage brain. So when they're doing really stupid stuff, you're like, how did that even come about? They're looking at something new, and they're going to look at if you don't provide them with rich, new experiences and a direction, if you don't provide it, they're going to find what's new on social media, and it's ugly. Okay? The teenage brain seeks novelty, newness. So try to provide have you guys been hiking? Does anybody hike? New experiences. Just, that's what you want your teenager a part of, is something new that's good, or else they'll find something new that's bad. And there's a lot of new bad out there. Okay. Oh, we're kind of at the end. So, so much happens in a day. How much happens in your day? Oh my gosh. By the time you get to bed, so many more events will happen in your day today, right? So, what your kids need is to debrief every night. And this is what I suggest you do with your kids every night. When you tuck them in, I want you to lay with them and go through their day. I want you to remember the things that happen in your day. Oh, so when you're going through your day with your kid and there's a new lesson that they needed to learn, you're like, okay, he didn't learn that. I just found out. Like I have an 18-year-old that he does things. He's so sweet. He's so sweet. But he'll do something and I'll be like, how did he get through 18 years and not know that? Like, how did that happen? So when you're going through the day with your child, you're going to notate in your head, okay, my kid doesn't get that. He's not getting it, right? And at the end of the day, I want you to bring those things. I'm going to tell you an example. I couldn't believe it. My little son is in the pool. We're in Palm Springs. My little son's in a pool, and they love to play football. And they are just like, they'll catch any game of football or any kind of ball, soccer, whatever. So there's this cute dad that's throwing his ball back and forth to his kid. And here's my son, who did not see the social cues that this was a nice bonding moment with this father and son. My son went over next to the boy and was like trying to catch the ball. And the father and the son were like, so my son didn't get that cue, right? He didn't get it. And I'm like thinking, oh my, and so I was like, and I had to get over like I was probably a little bit in my own ego and thinking, oh God, that's my kid doing that. So once I got over that, I realized, oh, I have to bring this back. My son doesn't, he's not trying to be a jerk or anything. He just doesn't know. And so that night, we're in bed, everything's calm, we're debriefing. And that's what we talked about. Hey, did you know that maybe you didn't notice that social cue of this father and this son? I think they were trying to have a moment to themselves. And he said, oh, Mom, I know. I got that. And he was trying to protect himself a little bit with defenses. But, okay, just so you know, sweetie, that I just want you to notice the social cues of what's happening with other people. And maybe you just learn this skill, to notice. So a good thing, if you don't know what to talk about, you can say, okay, what's your highs and lows? What was your high of the day? What was your low of the day? That's a good conversation. And make sure you're non-judgmental. So when you're debriefing, it's not a time to parent, okay? It's not time to parent. Your kids need a time of self-expression when you're not parenting. And you can let them know, when we're debriefing, just let's let it go. Let's talk about our highs and lows, because we all have them. And you can tell your kids your highs and lows. You're human, right? And you can also, it's good for them to know your lows, so they can know that, and then they've solved a problem already because they know what your low is and how you dealt with it. Oh, I had this low, but I figured it out because I did this, this, and this, and that's how I dealt with it. Okay, wow, another learning experience happening during debriefing. Okay, so I want it to be soft, loving, warm. Okay. This is a good time to talk about your kids' vulnerabilities. You know, you might have, and of course, you don't go directly into it. You know, use softer words. Hey, you might have a vulnerability towards this because I saw this today. Tell me about that. Do you struggle with this? You know? So we want to bring the whole day, we want to round it up, and we want a conclusion, an ending, right, to the day. Do you know in Catholicism we call it examining your conscience? Like sometimes I get really mad at my husband because I'm examining my conscience and I can't sleep and he's snoring next to me. And I'm like, something big just happened in our day. How can you sleep? Anyways, so debriefing. I want everybody debriefing with their children at night. Your children will really thank you and they'll feel more bonded to you. Use stories real quick. Anything that's put in a story is going to be internalized by your kids. That's why I'm stopping to tell you guys stories. So I'm hoping when you use a story, your kid's going to take it in. And like somebody was saying about the stories of Jesus. That's why they're so powerful, right? The prodigal son, right? The mustard seed. It's within a story. So I tell my kids, because I'm a therapist, so I tell them lots of stories because I've been with mothers I've counseled mothers who have abandoned their children, right? Because they like drugs a lot. So I tell my kids, that's a story. I tell my kids about all that pain that people suffer. But I put it in a story and we pray, right? So put everything in a story. So I tell my kids about, as they go, and of course they have to be older to know some stories, but I'm pretty open with my kids about the stories of our family. We recently have a divorce in our family. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My brother's the first one to be divorced. And so I tell my kids these stories. They might be faced with a divorce someday, right? So tell your kids all the stories. Your life as you've lived it probably has 250 stories, maybe 1,000 stories. Can everybody think of a story about something that you want your kids to learn? Put it in a story. So just instead of going like this, and we all do this, I'm not saying don't do that, but if you put it in a story, you're going to gain influence, you're going to increase bonding, you're going to relate with your child, okay? Put it in a story. You have 1,000 stories that you've already lived. Tell your children those stories. Oh, and we're almost to the end. When you're wrong, say sorry. In the Indian culture, do you guys say sorry? Are you not sorry, people? Tell me about it. Tell me about it. I don't know. I really don't know. Go ahead.
Our mannerism is low. Mannerism, saying excuse and sorry is...
Oh, you don't use a lot of excuse me, I'm sorry, or no. Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Okay. So, yeah, well, it's good in life, right? It's good in life. Nobody wants to be around a person who knows everything. I know some women they're in my kids group, and they look like they have it all together. They're dressed perfectly. There's none in here, so I can say I don't like them that much. I can't relate to them because I'm not really perfect. And I struggle every day. And so do all of us. And so I just think it's really important for your kids to know, because if you say sorry, your kids will know that they can say sorry. Because they don't have to be perfect, right? They don't have to be perfect. We want them to say sorry. Not only do we want them to say sorry, we want them to go to the next step. We want them to make amends, do something, an action. What is it? Is it biblical? What's that called? What? Reconciliation. Beautiful word, isn't it? Thank you. I'm going to use that. Reconciliation, right? We say, oh my God, I'm heartily sorry for having offended thee, right? So we want to teach our kids, you don't, because if you never say sorry and they feel like they never have to say sorry, they must be pretty perfect, right? That's a pretty big burden, being perfect. And I'm not really angry at those women because a lot of them come into my practice and I know that they're not perfect. So I guess I know I'm not angry at them, but because they're my friends, I expect more. But so those people really aren't perfect is my point, right? They just are pretending a little bit, right? And it's good. We want to be virtuous and show other people our virtue, of course. But being humble and saying sorry is important for our kids to learn. So we're ending now. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, no, this is the last slide. So all I'm saying is, oh, yeah, you guys keep me up on the time because you guys got to tell me. I'm just here for you. I'm here for you. I'm not here for me. So in closing, I just want to say, may the parent force be with you. And you probably don't know what that means, but that's a Star Wars reference. That is one of the good things about American culture is Star Wars. Everybody should watch Star Wars. Anyways, may the force be with you in parenting. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Oh, I'm sorry. You guys should have warned me. I didn't know we were like 30 minutes over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Megan, for the beautiful
Sure. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
So thank you, Megan. It was very interactive, and definitely I think all the family members would definitely take something out of it from today's discussion. So thank you very much. And on behalf of Pastor is not here, on behalf of Pastor, on behalf of the trustees, I want to thank you wholeheartedly from all of us.